Hello. Do we have? I think we have. Do we have everybody that we're expecting? We haven't got any stragglers left hanging around by the teacups or anything? No. Oh, Colleen will just go and double check, but I think we should begin. So, as always, thank you ever so much for turning up to the Members' Day and AGM. We do realise that the AGM isn't necessarily potentially the most exciting day you've ever had out in your life, but it is important to the Institute, and so we genuinely appreciate your attendance. So the agenda, so hopefully most of you know who I am by now as President Neil Vose, and on my left is Ros Wigmore. On the right-hand side we have our Vice President Jim Smith, and we have Phil Price on the end there, who's in charge of our marketing and other areas of the... That's all. Yes. So, with no further ado, the agenda for today, very straightforwardly, is that we're going to conduct the AGM now, and then immediately after the AGM, probably with a little bit of time for some more tea between times, we will be having Jason giving us a lovely talk on species AI capture, which I'm sure he's going to tell us all about. You can read the title yourselves, and that's going to be fabulous, I'm sure. In terms of the AGM, as you understand, it's a pretty formal process. Do you want to put the slide up? Oh, yes, it has appeared now. Yep, so it's a very formal process. These are the same basic bullet points that we see annually. So we're going to work through them one by one, starting off with the apologies of those who are unable to attend. And I believe, Ros, you're going to read those.
So the people that have given their apologies.
And I think we'd probably all like to say best wishes to Brian, who's not here for medical reasons. So the hospital wouldn't let him out for the day, unfortunately.
Probably tried.
Yeah, he probably tried.
First one he's ever missed, isn't it?
So now we need to move on to the next straightforward thing, which is the approval of the AGM 26th AGM minutes. So as always, for these things, we need a proposer and a seconder. So who would like to propose approval of the 26th AGM minutes? Ideally, someone that's read them. Oh, no, I'm not that fussy.
Proposer. Okay, thank you. And a seconder?
Tony Stacey, I'm looking at you. Well done.
Oh, okay, sorry, I went behind. I saw behind first, so Ed seconded them, and
perfect.
Then they're obviously approved. So can I just ask you to just sign that last page?
I won't sign it in pencil.
No, I had to find a pen, thank you.
Okay, so there we are.
Thank you.
Key item 1. And the next thing is the annual report, which is I'm going to talk a bit about the things that we've achieved during the 2023. Obviously, 2023 being counted as the period from the last AGM up until today. I think we got slides on each of these individually, basically, haven't we? Is that pretty much right, or not particularly? No, we're going to talk to them as they are. I couldn't remember because we've got a slide membership numbers somewhere, haven't we?
Yes, that's further down.
That's further down. But yeah, I mean, very pleased to say that we've continued with the upward trend in membership numbers. We broke just about through the 1,000 member barrier in time for last year's AGM, and I think we're about 1,200. I was going to say late 1100s, but apparently 1,200. So again, 20% growth in numbers since last year. So that's really good, and keeps us all on a financially sound footing. We're on our second year of the lifetime service memberships, which is something we voted for those who've done 21 years of continuous membership, and had reached the sort of age where people are entitled to call themselves senior. And
Mature.
yeah, well, my rail card doesn't say mature rail card. It's just anyway. So yeah, we're very happy to continue that with that process. I think you know, last year again set out the stall a little bit for the 2023 to say that increasing our training, both the quantity and the quality of the courses, not and the quantity of people attending and the number of courses you can attend, was an important part of what we were going to try and do, and we have done that during 2023, and we're very keen in 2024 to launch our audio-visual course, which we're sort of more than 80% of the way through, and we just need to send it through to CPD, and I've made the solemn promise that I will be at the first of those courses that which will be done on the basis that I have very little knowledge about the V side of our industry. So I think it would be a nice thing for me to go and attend, and you know, I think it's you know, it's going to be a great course. So quite excited about that one, and if we can continue to see overall the training courses go well again in this year, it's going to be fantastic. In terms of the engineering council qualifications, you know, we set off on this journey to get ourselves involved with the engineering council and become a member. Has to say that progress is somewhere between slow and exceptionally slow. We have made some headway, but we don't have any. We don't have anything that we can really report as fantastic news at this time. One of the nice events that we did back in November was the members Get Ahead event. You know, we did that at the very nice Rose Shaw Centre in London. Thank you to John and friends for the use of the building, and that, you know, that was a great success. We got a good selection of people to that, and I thought really interesting seminars as well. So that was a good event, and we're looking to do something like that again at the end of this year. As yet, location and topics undetermined, but we will be back to you with that information fairly soon. In terms of assisted listening, that's something that we, again, we're trying to reflect all of the different parts of the industry. So the assistive listening is an important part of people's revenue and earnings in the companies and individually, as well as being obviously a great social benefit for those requiring it. So I think, you know, our work in terms of actually releasing a guide and the code of practice on that is you know, core activity for the institute, and the work is very high quality. It's a joy to read. In terms of actually getting our message out, we have worked again to make sure that the ISCVE is well covered in the press. I mean, getting your message out is always a challenge, particularly if you're not blessed with a multi-million-pound advertising budget, or you know, you don't look like Will and Kate, and you can therefore rely on Twitter to do all your press coverage for you. But we are where we are, and again, we're looking to expand on that in this year. The organisation chart, which I can't read, because it's way too small. But as you can see, we continue to have a variety of committees working on a number of subjects which are close to our hearts. Specific thanks and have to go again to the membership committee for their sterling work in helping us get the membership enhanced, both in terms of new members and also in terms of the upgrades. And I think, without wanting to dwell on this too much because I can't really see it, one of the things that this year coming up will be a nice thing to do would be to actually just go through this organisation chart and the people that are on it and make sure that we have a good focus of people, that the people that are involved in these projects are active and we're actually making progress on those. Mainly because one of the issues that we have in terms of the Secretariat is that we don't really have the time to spend a lot of time badgering people. And I think that, you know, this comes up in a couple of different spheres. So what we would like to do is to make sure that all the people who are active, who are involved in these committees, to develop our presence and are the people that want to be there, and we're actually actively making progress on those things. And anyone who would really like to help out with any of these subjects, please see me after class. It'll be, you know, no, honestly, come and speak to Ros. We would really appreciate additional bodies and minds to help us with these processes. So, you know, if you've got a bit of time and energy to spare, we would really love to have you involved. So, the membership. 1126, I see that says. No, I brought my own glasses somewhere. But again, in terms of the membership, what we've got there is, I think, a reasonable spread in the terms of the different classes of member. You know, we've got a good number of people who are actually the members, which is the core, I suppose, one of the core parts of the Institute rankings, and the senior technician, because obviously we're a technical enterprise, effectively, again, is very good. So, you know, by the time you take the members, senior technicians and technicians, you can see it really is the vast bulk of the membership. And the supporting members and premium supporting members, again, where the companies are helping us, again, the numbers are up, and we genuinely appreciate all the help we get from the supporting members in keeping everything running. Always been an interesting question, the demographic of the Institute. I can't remember how many times over the last many years I've heard people suggest that the demographic was heavily loaded towards the higher end, and as you can see, it's not. You know, we have a very reasonable spread now of membership from 20s up to 60s. So, you know, it is really nice to see that we're involving all ages in the Institute. And this is a little bit of a best guess, according to what people put down as their primary market sector. But again, it's a good mix there. Audio visual has come along quite a long way over the last couple of years. But you know, again, I think it covers everything, and it covers it all in a reasonable percentage in all the different areas. So very pleased to also see that we're reflecting the full Institute of Sound Communication Visual Engineering in our membership market sectors. So on the training, just a little recap of the courses that we've got. So acoustics, assistive hearing, voice alarm, audio visual, new, coming up very soon, sound system design, and live sound engineering core skills, which is going to be another new course for this year. We would again thank Sarah for all her effort, in particular in putting these together and getting the courses set up and people to come to attend them. And as always, would recommend that any of you who can come to such courses or influence the organisations within which you work to send people on the courses, we really appreciate that. So, yeah, I suppose, again, training, really important, and also, as well as thanking Sarah for actually doing the courses, it's a big thanks to actually our training presenters, without whom we couldn't do the training, so thanks to them too. Our ECS card is something that Colleen has been heading up the efforts on for a few years or so now. We have the sound engineer ECS card and the audio visual engineer ECS cards now for 3 years. I don't really need to read out the rest of the bits to you, I don't think, on that particular slide, but the ECS card is an invaluable part of the work that we do, and it's I think we have to respectfully recognise that a number of the people who are members of the Institute are at least dragged in by the ECS card, and then it's our job to retain them by encouraging them to take part in the other events that we have to offer once we've captured their interest. In terms of various ongoing initiatives, so the I don't think these are in any particular order other than the order that they came into. They're not in order of importance or anything like that, are they, Ros?
No.
No. But the Good Sound Charter is something that we've talked about for a while. We haven't made ever so much progress with it yet, but it's still the idea of having a charter that we can share with end users, venue operators and that sort of thing at a non-technical level to help them recognise what good sound could be and how they might go about that. I think that's a piece of work which we can address well. A registered installer network is something that I personally have a degree of enthusiasm for. I think we started out with the idea of it being an approved installer network, and that led to all sorts of challenges in terms of how one might actually carry out these approvals and so on, but actually to invite the companies who employ our members to show their best case studies and the synopsis of their information, and then to actually use some of the Institute's setup to make a portal with those on visible to, again, end users, consultants, facilities companies, whoever. I think is a piece of work that, you know, we can put our back into potentially in 2024 and hopefully add value for, you know, particularly for those people we see, the installers who are employing a number of people they're putting through for the ECS cards and so on, and it's a method of making some repayment to them for the what they're investing in us. So I think that's something that I'd like to progress in this year. Get Ahead, or the Get Ahead event, was a success last year. We will be running it again this year. Charitable status for the Institute is something which continues to... Doug knows potentially a little bit more about it than I'm aware of, and you know, it's something we would like to look at. There are various issues around it, but fundamentally it is something that we would like to do overall. Yeah, I think I've mentioned the continuing to do the courses. The next one, the recurring membership fees. This comes back to the thing I was saying about trying to free up the time of the Secretariat to concentrate on useful work. Time, again, if you went from days where we had 300 to 400 members and you knew everybody by first name, and so, you know, Dave hadn't paid his subs and you could ring up Dave and go, "Hi Dave, how's it all going?" Yeah, it wasn't such a time-consuming business. But now you're looking at 1,200 members. You're not necessarily on first name terms with all of those people, however hard Ros might try. And so we don't really want to have people in the Secretariat spending a lot of time doing that piece of work. So for many of us as customers, I think the idea of a recurring membership fee is very straightforward. So you basically sign up to it, you want to be a member, you're going to remain to be a member. So, you know, let's just agree that we'll take your money annually, and then you don't forget, everything's catered for, Ros doesn't have to ring you, and overall the Institute runs in a more efficient way. So that's something that I'm very pleased to be able to implement this year. Creating some voice alarm system guides, again, is something that there's always some considerable interest in. There are a lot of people in the voice alarm business who don't always have all the paperwork they think they might need, and so for us to provide them with some useful forms and documents that they can use, I think is again part of the valuable work that the Institute can do for people. So yeah, really plenty to do, and if there's anything that you feel that you would like to see the Institute working on, please come and let us know, and you can start your own committee. Yeah, so thank you again, everyone, for coming. This is an easy bit. Thanks for, again, all the committee members and council directors who volunteer to, support the Institute. None of us here are paid, except Ros. We still have to say thank you to her, obviously.
And Sarah and Colleen.
And Sarah and Colleen, but I don't mean just here.
Me.
No, not just here. So yeah, thanks to everybody for getting involved. I think Ros, as always, bears a significant brunt of the politics of running the ISCVE, sort of balancing up a variety of different people's enthusiasms. And so I think we have to thank her for that as much as for everything else. Sarah in particular for the courses which we really appreciate, and her work on some of the exhibitions. Colleen for the ECS work, fabulous as always. This year in particular we'd like to thank our sponsors. If anyone's here from any of Audio Logic, Baldwin Box or CIE Group, Leisure Tech or RCF, they're welcome to stand up and take a bow at this point. Well, there you go. And, as always, thanks to the magnificent Cummings Recordings for their help in putting the PA system together for today and for the seminars. And with that, we move back to the rather tedious business of talking about money. Do you want to talk about the money, Ros?
Well, I think the figures speak to them for themselves.
You can read them.
But no, you can do it. Oh, no, I'm shy.
Okay, well, the good news is we made a profit, so that's... as Ros says, the figures speak for themselves. We made a profit. We made slightly more profit than we made last year. We have a healthy current account balance. Our investments are all under control, at basically the same value as last year. And the bounce back loan, which we gratefully received from the government during the time of COVID, is diminishing rapidly. So that's altogether good news. And what I would like to do at this point is I do need a proposer and a seconder to accept the accounts. So if someone could propose acceptance of the accounts.
Again.
Well done. One hand up. And a seconder, please. Thank you very much. Perfectly. So, therefore, the 2023 year-end accounts are approved. We do have to fix the fee of...
Pardon?
You have to vote. Not just Rosemary seconder, you do have to vote on it.
We do.
Do we?
I was going to do a roundup at the end, but that's
Okay.
fine. We can
Do you want to...
go back over then for the 26th AGM minutes. We have a proposer, Honey, and a seconder, Edman Waring. Do we all approve the minutes of the last meeting? For the 2023 year-end accounts, we had a proposer, Honey, and seconder, Jason. Do we all approve the 2023 minutes? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think the last piece of official business then is to fix the fee of the accountant, which is will be in the region of £1,645. So again, we need a proposer to propose that we accept that. Thank you very much, Alex, and a seconder to. Thank you very much, and then may we therefore please all approve the fee of the accountant. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you very much. And that
is... there we go.
Okay, so as you know, the time of the persons on the board of directors and council is not unlimited. We are required to be re-elected from time to time. At this time, we do need an approval to re-elect our good friend Doug as a director, and we also need approval to re-elect Gareth, Andy and Anthony Stacey as council members. So can I do them as one, or do I have to do them?
No, you can do that.
Can I do them as one group? So I'd like a proposer to propose all of those. Thank you very much, Paul. A seconder for seconding them. Very good. And then could we all raise our hands if we are in general approval of those nominations? Thank you very much. So, questions and answers.
Can I just interrupt you there, Neil? As we should have said, we're live streaming this whole proceeding on our YouTube channel. That's purely for some of our members that are not well enough to attend. We've not advertised it publicly. So when you do ask any questions, please use the roving microphone that hopefully Malcolm's got over there somewhere. Otherwise, they won't be able to hear you.
Or ideally, don't ask any questions.
If nobody asks any questions, then it doesn't matter.
Does anybody have any questions?
Will the sound charter include getting the hotel to mute the background music?
Good point.
I've got a question.
Right, we have one question.
Has the committee thought about a way that we might be able to start attracting the younger people into the Institute? When I say younger, I mean people from sort of school leavers or just before leaving school to kind of college age. I noticed that you're going to be running this live engineering course, live engineering training. Mm-hmm. That would be a really exciting way to make things appeal to the youngsters.
I have to say that the live engineering course was one of the features of trying to do it, and actually, you know, I think we've been invited to Plaza Focus, haven't we, in Leeds? Yeah, although we haven't exactly got it all worked out, one of the potential things to speak about was actually a little bit about building your career in our industry, because I think, you know, if you're a young person at school or college age, you probably see our group of industry through a very narrow focus, potentially, of, for example, live sound engineering, and you don't necessarily see that actually, you know, there can be a quite enjoyable living to be had out of big audio visual systems or voice alarm systems, or, you know, all those other things. So actually, you know, one of the proposals that we were considering was to use our slot at the Plaza Focus to actually talk about opportunities for people across different areas of our industry, because, you know, Plaza Focus does attract a younger crowd, and I think if we did create such content, we would have the opportunity to use that more widely. So that we tried to do our bit. We did go to a BBC thing, didn't we, in Docklands a year or so back, specifically for young people and live sound, and I have to say it wasn't a fabulous success, was it, for us?
I mean, some of our members are STEM ambassadors, and they go into schools, and that's a brilliant way of sharing what we do in our industry and telling them about the Institute. I don't know how many actually tell them about the Institute, but anyway, if more people could do that, and perhaps let us know if you are a STEM ambassador, because we do make a note of that. And
Alex?
Just one point to add to this.
Wait for the mic, Alex.
It's just on its way. Thank you so much. Just one point to add to this very important question, which is there are potential collaborative opportunities for the Institute to develop this initiative, shall we say. So, for example, off the top of my head, I know that Middlesbrough College are currently running the audio-visual technician apprenticeship, which has been running for about a year or so now. So potentially there's an opportunity to kind of buddy up, for want of a better word, with the college, and in so doing we could encourage the school leavers that are now attending this apprenticeship. Once they pass their apprenticeship, they can potentially come on board and sign up as members of the institute. So there's other things that we can progress with that, and sure Hanny here and in Ros as well, we can have a little chat about that later and work out how that might work.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, we did also sort of look at the apprenticeship thing, but in the end we didn't quite get somewhere with it. But we again, it's something we were trying to evaluate how we could get involved with apprenticeship type schemes.
It was very hard to know sort of how much information to get on our website. It was sort of like this bottomless tunnel that it was all a bit much, but any help with that would be hugely appreciated.
Excellent. So, with no further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Phil, who will talk us through the ISCVE 2024 schedule.
Okay. Right. Those of you that have booked for the dinner this evening, the networking dinner, we have a drinks reception, first of all, starting at 7 o'clock in the marquee, remember, not in the older building. And dinner will be at around 8 o'clock, and that again will be in the marquee. And we do have some entertainment for you tonight. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's a choir. They're called the Last Orders Pub Choir. And they are quite hilarious. So hopefully you'll all enjoy that. We for that particular event, we want to thank in advance Malcolm and Cunnings and family for setting up the sound system in there, and we also want to thank Nexo for providing the system for that tonight. And then tomorrow morning, the exhibition opens between 9 and 9:30. That is the right time, isn't it, Ross?
Yes.
Where we will be serving tea and coffee, of course, and biscuits in the marquee. We have 3 seminars for you tomorrow. The exact names of them all, I might need correcting on, but the first one is quite interesting. It's about the AV systems that are installed in Wimbledon. And then we have Peter Mapp doing a technical seminar, Myths, Maths and something or other, that's around 11:30, I believe. And the afternoon one is quite an off audio or off video subject, but important to us all. We have a Microsoft consultant coming to talk to us about cyber technology and cyber security. Yeah, on our laptops, on our phones, on our iPads, etc., which it is quite important. So hopefully you'll find those useful. If for some reason you're looking after your exhibition stands and you want to watch any of those seminars and can't attend, you can watch them on your iPhones or tablets on our YouTube channel. So they'll all be on there tomorrow. And the exhibition will finish around 4:30. Most important thing about the exhibition is we've got around 32 exhibitors this year across all the spectrums of audio, from voice alarm to live sound to AV, to hard of hearing. If I've left anything out, please tell me, but we've got a good broad section of exhibitors. And the most important thing, of course, is lunch, which is free to anyone attending, which will obviously be around 1 o'clock-ish tomorrow. So we've got quite a number of, well, we've got a record number of registrants this year for visitors. Hopefully they'll turn up. You never really know, I mean, with who's registered and who's not. But the interesting thing is we've got a lot of new visitors, new people that have not visited this exhibition before, hopefully coming. So that we need to sort of make sure that we look after them very well. Have I missed anything else? I think that covers it all tomorrow. So, yeah, the seminars, of course, will be in here. But obviously we'll be serving tea and coffee in between all 3, and it gives you also a chance to talk to our exhibitors so that they're not talking to themselves. So if anyone's got any further questions, just ask me later. we look forward to this evening and seeing you all later for that. But we've got some other things going on as well, so I'll hand you back to Neil.
Okay. Well, that about concludes our official business. Obviously, we've got Jason's talk, which we've got scheduled for past. I'm conscious of the fact that maybe you might want to just take a shorter comfort break and maybe start at 15:15. How does that seem for everybody? Would that be suitable? Yeah, because I don't want to sort of start immediately, because if there's anyone in the tent who wanted to come along and was unaware that we changed the time, that at least gives us enough time to go there and tell everybody that we're going to start at 15:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you ever so much for attending the AGM. We really appreciate your time and effort, and we shall look forward to seeing you in about 20 minutes for Jason's talk. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Yeah, it's me again. Sorry about that. So we are now having successfully eradicated a gremlin from the system. I now have the pleasure of turning you over to Jason, who's will be giving us some very exciting talk about revolutionising biodiversity monitoring, which obviously involves puffins. Excellent. Jason.
Okay, so everybody's been out and had a little bit of a drink, but I think we're going to try and energise everybody a little bit more so you can really engage with the presentation. So those who can everyone please stand up out of their chairs? We're going to do what's called the stretch and breathe. It's really simple. It's not yoga. Anyone can do it. I can do it. So the first thing I want everyone to do is stand with their feet apart quite comfortably and raise your hands up. All the way up, palms flat, as if you're going to try and stretch up and touch the ceiling. Big stretch. Everyone that can. It feels having a go. We're all doing it, right? Real big stretch. And then bring your arms down to here. Shoulder height. And then as if you're trying to stretch the room. Stretch the room. That's it. Nice big stretch. Okay, and now arms back down and relax. Okay, we're going to do 3 nice big deep breaths. Okay, ready? So the first one, big deep breath. Hold it for a little bit. Let it out. Number 2, big deep breath. Let it out. Last one, big deep breath. Let it out. Now you can all sit down and I'm going home. Right? Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for attending the AGM, and more so, thanks for staying to capture some of what I'm going to talk about today. Capture being the kind of capitalised, underlined words here. Before we start, does anyone know, or has anyone ever heard of Species AI capture before? Show of hands. Good. Good, because that means it's a really good niche that I'm going to make a lot of money in. Okay, let me find my clicker. Okay, so what is species AI capture? That's the first kind of big question. So species AI capture can be simply defined as the use of using machine learning technologies to automatically detect, identify and record lots of different information about various species in their natural habitat. Okay, why is ecosystem monitoring important? So biodiversity and ecosystem monitoring is absolutely essential for understanding the health and stability of our environment. We monitor like a whole diverse range of life forms in a given area, which helps us to recognise changes over time, whether they're natural variations or caused by human activities. Traditionally, monitoring wildlife there were a whole lot of what I would call very manual techniques. Things like direct observations, so actually there with your binoculars, looking at birds, collecting soil samples, picking up small insects, etc. A lot of clipboard recording, a lot of paperwork, taking photographs, trapping animals to monitor their behaviour, then obviously releasing them, tagging animals to look at population behaviour and what different species are doing. And of course, audio monitoring, being out there with your tape recorder and your microphone and recording animal sounds and songs. So a lot of very manual, kind of tedious work. Of course, that kind of manual monitoring, there are some kind of pitfalls from that. And one of those is the fact that it's very open to human error. You know, it's easy to miscount things, lose paperwork, forget to write things down. And also, some of the people that are recording this sort of information have kind of a bit of bias sometimes on what they're recording, especially if they have some emotional connection. You know, a lot of people that do this are probably ornithologists or have an interest in nature. So there's definitely room there for there to kind of be a bit of bias. So what we're looking at with species AI capture is monitoring wildlife, monitoring ecosystems and biodiversity digitally. We use things like automatic image recognition to identify species and count population, sound identification, we can positively identify sound, and all this has been made possible with AI and machine learning. We're able to analyse noise, we look at noise levels in different habitats to see whether you know, human beings or any other kind of outside influence is causing issues. We can put a whole variety of different kinds of sensors. Everyone knows IoT, the Internet of Things, where you have so many different sensors that can be connected up Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. We can monitor things like moisture, temperature, air, pH levels, water quality. All these things are important, not just monitoring the wildlife themselves, but monitoring the you know, the natural habitat and the natural environment around them. And then from that information, we can do a lot of quite interesting predictive modelling and simulation, which helps to make really important decisions when thinking about conservation. And of course, we're collecting all that data in a non-invasive way, and it's all being collected accurately and being logged. Of course, it opens up big questions about the data. Obviously, there's someone coming from Microsoft tomorrow talking about cybersecurity. You know, you have to be quite careful with how you store the data, how you transfer the data, how that data's kept and collected. Okay, so how did I get into species AI capture? Cut a really long story short, about 4 years ago, I met a team of very passionate, like-minded AV professionals running a small company who wanted to try and survive over lockdown. A lot of companies were folding because, you know, the work wasn't around. And they asked me if I could go and have a look around and try and find some interesting little niches we could work in that wouldn't necessarily be affected by lockdown. That's a really hard thing to do, right? Anyway, through a distributor, I got this crazy phone call one day saying, Jason, I've got this customer who wants to put some cameras on an island in the middle of the North Sea to monitor puffins. He said, I've spoken to all the other AV installers I know and nobody wants to touch it. And then I thought of you. And I said, thank you very much, Kenton, thank you very much for that. I just dropped a name in there. I don't know who if you know Kenton. I said, thanks, Kenton. I said, but really, I said, he said, you know you want to do it, Jason. Hence this project kind of fell into our laps. And we've been working with the customer, Southern and Scottish Electric, ever since. The first video I'm going to show you is basically a video that the BBC made. It was one of the BBC Click episodes. It's about a 5-minute video, but it explains basically what the project was about, and what we were doing on the Isle of May. So hopefully, when I press this, it should start up.
So it talks about how putting up wind turbines might affect the local wildlife. Well, Nick Queck has been out into the North Sea to find out how one energy company is trying to prevent problems for a population of puffins.
Nine miles off the coast of Wick, at the far north of Scotland, it's wavy and it's windy.
You can see them there on the horizon.
I've come to visit the 84 turbines that make up SSE Renewables' Beatrice site.
This is one of the UK's largest offshore wind farms, with enough capacity to power almost 500,000 homes.
The UK government, though, wants enough wind energy to be generated to power all of British homes by 2030. And it's cut approval times for new offshore farms from 4 years to just one.
Of course, it's not as simple as just sticking these things into the seabed.
Right now with offshore wind and the scale of development that we're going to see, we just don't yet know how that's going to impact the oceans. So we always need to think about what's the impact on habitats and wildlife, and especially when we're harnessing nature's resources, then we need to make sure that we're protecting the natural environment too.
There's loads of them.
They've been conducting a study with Microsoft and Avanade on the Isle of May in Fife, home to fauna such as seals, ducklings and the much-loved puffin.
This is a sanctuary for puffins, with around 80,000 nesting here each year.
It's estimated because traditional counting has been done by eye, so researchers have engineered a way to keep better tabs on them.
The effects that we see from building offshore wind farms isn't seen immediately within the local ecology. It's obviously an effect that takes time, and what's really important is that we start monitoring the local ecology to our wind farms so that we understand the impacts we have, so that we can implement corrective actions and potentially have a positive impact.
They've installed 4 artificially intelligent camera systems to count puffins and monitor their flight, each equipped with their own custom-made marine-grade jackets.
You can't buy this off the shelf.
Right, okay.
And we've had these created specifically for these 4 cameras which are on this island.
Right. And so the puffins are under CCTV surveillance?
They are, 24 hours a day.
Are they happy with that?
Is that a wee windscreen wiper?
That is indeed, yes. And that allows us to perform periodic maintenance, ensuring that we can clean the lens of any salty deposits which picked up from the harsh sea air. Puffins generally, when they're congregating around their burrows, tend to face out looking down this hill. So we have one camera position further down the hill looking straight onto the puffin, giving a good view of the portrait, whereas this gives a good side-on view of the profile of the puffin.
You're quite right, I can see one right there actually.
Exactly,
looking
yes.
side on.
So as part of the trial, we really wanted to understand what would give the AI the best opportunity to recognise a puffin. In February, this was just a barren ground. There was no grass, let alone flowers. And you can see here now all these white flowers that have bloomed. So the white flowers actually merge with the breast of the puffins in terms of the pixels for the AI to pick up. So it was actually tricking the AI.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and actually resulted in slight inaccuracies until we retrained the model to identify the puffins in amongst the white flowers.
Wow. So actually ended up not being as simple as you thought it was going to be.
No, it certainly was not, but that was the reason for the trial. We wanted to explore, understand what works well, what doesn't work well, and yeah, there's many takeaways, one of them including seasonal training of the model.
This is chiefly a data gathering exercise, the initial entries for a long-term puffin digital database.
Already we're building up quite a strong picture of how the puffins behave during certain times of day, understanding when there's peak puffin activity versus low puffin activity. So very soon we should start to be able to understand when there's any anomalies in this behaviour. But at the moment it is still very early and we are still trying to understand the data and really start pulling it together.
We've got a very narrow window of time in order to ensure that we can protect a lot of ecosystems that are in huge danger. And so it's something that's incredibly close to Microsoft's heart.
Is there a bit of responsibility or a bit of maybe even guilt sometimes when it comes to addressing the climate change issues surrounding technology companies having such a carbon footprint?
Well, we know that the carbon emissions that Microsoft have, it represents less than 1% of the global carbon emissions. But you're right, the data center footprint is one that we're really focused on. And I think in the world that we live today, the demand for data and technology is one that's growing.
And to satisfy that demand, we'll need more electricity.
The thing is, if we're to reach government targets and lessen our dependence on burning fossil fuels, then we're going to have to embrace renewable energy.
Let's just hope the rollout is a harmonious one for everyone's sake.
That project was an absolutely fantastic success. It took us about 6 months to plan it. We're only a small company at ISCVE. We've got 12 employees. In fact, we only had, I think, 9 employees then. So we put together a project team of subcontractors. We had subcontractors for the cameras, for the mechanical engineering, the electrical engineering, the IT engineering, the RF that we had to put on there because the 4G signal on the Isle of May was just not very good at all. So we brought a satellite company in to put satellite equipment in. And my 2 fellow directors, Alex and Gareth, were still nervous that we weren't going to pull this off. But it was an absolutely fantastic project. Everyone worked really hard. We kind of patting ourselves on our backs. From that, it opened up the door to a huge amount more projects, a lot of varied projects, which you're going to hear about soon, looking at all kinds of other different kinds of wildlife in lots of different types of habitats. But there were challenges, especially working in a marine environment. Now, years ago, I spent a lot of time working on the cruise ships and the ferries, so I'd had a little bit of experience of what salt air can do to equipment. In fact, I remember one day being on the top deck of a cruise ship and one of the officers saying to me that the speaker wasn't working, getting up on a ladder, a little A-frame ladder, taking the speaker off, opening the back and emptying the speaker out of the back of the cabinet in it, which had fallen into its component parts. So we all know that a loudspeaker uses lots of different types of glues, adhesives, screws, etc. And the whole speaker had just fallen apart into its pieces, as if you were buying a recone kit to kind of put the speaker back together. So salt air is awful. It just fails adhesives, it corrodes metal. Really, only stainless steel and only a certain type of stainless steel will put up with it. Everything else just corrodes, and it doesn't matter what you do and how well you seal things in, the salt air still gets in and starts to corrode things. I remember even inside the cruise ships, some of the tills, even like inside the ship, some of the DJ equipment, PA amplifiers, everything just corroding away, and that stuff's not even outside. The salt air's just getting in through the, through the heating and ventilation system. Some other challenges. Have I gone the wrong way? I have. No, that was the right way.
Oh, sweet.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, we're going to have a look at this one first. Before we get into like some of the real challenges that we had when we were doing the marine engineering, that project at the Isle of May led us on to our first actual install. So the Isle of May really was kind of the proof of concept to see if things would work. And then SSE were so impressed and excited to move forward, they gave us our first install project. This was right up in the Highlands, a place called Dunbeef, not very far from, right from the top of Scotland, absolutely in the middle of nowhere. They said, we want 4 cameras here to look at this rock out at sea. You're going to be putting your camera right on the edge of the cliff. This is just a short video, but basically shows you this was our kind of next kind of big install.
First, in terms of how we are applying this technology. So the project here at Dunbeef is to install a camera system for monitoring the puffin colony local to the Beatrice offshore wind farm. Previously, the counting puffins was a very manual task. So you can imagine going out to the field with a clipboard, they maybe take some photos, they have binoculars, and these activities can only take place, once or twice a year. Having a system such as this gives us monitoring for 16 hours a day, every day of the breeding season. We have 4 cameras here monitoring the puffin stack from 4 different points, and the video footage is then streamed up into the cloud, where it's processed by our AI model, which aggregates the counts from the 4 cameras to give us an overall colony count. This is a world's first in terms of how we are applying this technology. So Microsoft have used similar technology in the past for sort of one-off projects, but in terms of actual environmental monitoring, this is a world's first. The data that we're collecting from the AI model is then shared with Nature Scott as part of our consent conditions for the Beatrice offshore wind farm. There are discussions around us potentially sharing this data publicly and making it available maybe via our website. We could have live streams of the cameras with the AI overlay on top and also have some statistics available. But at the moment, this data is going to be used for regulatory compliance with Nature Scott.
Okay, so let's have a look at some of these. Some of these were quite big challenges, actually. Certainly at Dunbeef, one of our biggest challenges was actually getting the equipment to site, because there wasn't a convenient road and then like a little path down to where you were going to put the kit. It was just fields, and a lot of it was muddy, slippery, long grass. Some of it was slopes all the way down to the edge of the cliff. No fence there. How are we going to get equipment just across there? Where are we going to put all our equipment? Where are we going to put all our staff? It was a massive team on this Dunbeef project. One of the reasons for that is number 2 on my list was power distribution. There aren't any conveniently placed double sockets on the side of the cliff. Where are you going to get power? You need power to power the cameras, the computer that's doing the recording. We've got a local NAS drive in there that's backing up all the footage. And then, of course, our 4G modem to actually get the video files up and out to the cloud so that they could be processed. So what we managed to do, we managed to find a friendly farmer, and the farmer said, yeah, you can absolutely use the sockets in my barn, but I'm going to charge you for renting my land. And he said, by the way, I've done a quick measurement on the drawing. I've spoken to my land agent, and the barn's about 500 metres away from where you're going to put your sockets. So he says it's going to be a long extension lead. I was like, well, you can't just use a long extension lead. Over that distance, there's a lot of calculations you've got to do about, obviously, voltage drop. So you can't just get your 500 metre reel of cable out. You've got to put in a big, fat piece of heavy cable. In fact, £15,000 worth of steel wire armoured cable. And you've got to drag that through a field. You can't just lay that on the ground. You've got to dig a trench, and if you've got to dig a trench, you've got to have a JCB. And if you've got a JCB, then you've got to have another truck to pick up all the soil, so the soil can go back in again. And by the way, you can't just have a couple of people on the end of the cable pulling a cable. You've got to tow that cable along with something. It's a heavy piece of cable. So of course, I'm loving this because the numbers are going up and up and up and up, right? Because we've got to do all this, do all this work. Something else, obviously, that you have to think about when you're putting electronics in a coastal situation or marine situation is how you're going to protect the electronics. I was talking to Peter about this earlier. It's a real big problem. Salt air just gets into everything. In fact, the system that you've just seen at Dunbeef, we've put what I call a teleconference cabinet up, the big green cabinets that you see on the side of the road. It's got all seals around the door. We put a fan on the side with a filter on it. It's still not filtering all the salt air out. There's still salt air getting in, and we can just about now see USB cables that's starting to rust around the edges of network sockets. We're going to have to go back and do some periodic maintenance on that. In fact, SSE still haven't set up their support contracts, which we're supposed to be getting in a week or so's time. So yeah, protecting electronics, that's a really important one. Obviously staff welfare, again, we're out in the middle of nowhere. The only place I could find that possibly could have helped was there's a tiny little Croft museum probably about 200 metres away from the site, and they had a little cafe there, and I was like, great, we'll rent the cafe. We'll just rent the cafe. We'll pay them for the cafe. We've got food, drink, somewhere warm for the crew to, you know, take off their muddy stuff, blah, blah, blah. Somewhere to put a laptop, have a little bit of a site office. No, sorry, we can't help, it's closed, we haven't got enough staff to run it. I said, well, can't we just borrow it? No, sorry. So in the end, so we got their car park and we turned their car park into a builder's compound, right? We dropped a welfare unit down there, we put storage containers to put all the kit in. We had like a little production village for a couple of weeks. It took us a week to basically dig the trench and run the cables in before we could even start putting all the electronics in, building a massive great concrete plinth and putting up a marine architect design camera mast because the winds were so high there, we didn't want anything getting blown off the edge of the cliff and into the sea. So, got some pictures there. So we hired a couple of these all-terrain vehicles, and we also had to hire drivers because we weren't insured to drive these things. And these things look like a car, but they're really not that easy to drive. So we had those. We had a couple of tractors as well. Obviously, a JCB and a JCB handler. And then somebody to basically drive a dumper truck for the soil. You can see this is the 500-metre cable route. Obviously, there's our camera. I'm shaking. And then up here is basically the barn position. And we looked at lots of different routes and ways we could get through. Because across here, where that little blue dot is there's a water course. Which we had to run a cable through. Of course, anything that's kind of like protected by Nature Scott or whatever, or is heritage or is a conservation area, then you know, you almost have to get on your hands and knees and, you know, plead, you know, to be allowed to, you know, just dig a little tiny trench. You can see there the trench being dug. I mean, I love the picture on the right because it just looks like it goes on for miles. And honestly, it looks like an easy task, but it really isn't. You know, it's extremely labour intensive, that job, but definitely a challenge. I think, you know, I've been in audiovisual for nearly 35 years now. I've been in pretty much all areas of AV. But these are the jobs that I guess really kind of float my boat, that get me excited, because they're just out-of-the-box projects. And they really are adventures, they really are challenges, and you feel really quite satisfied after you've completed one and the customer's happy, and then you get paid. So you can see here just a couple of pictures of you can see how close we had to put this cabinet to the edge of the cliff, and the huge, great... I wanted to take some pictures of it and post it out as the monolith, you know, the big concrete block there that we had to put down to bolt everything to. But I mean, we've over-engineered everything there. The cabinet, you can see how thick the poles are for the mast. All of that is marine grade, and then it's all been coated with a marine grade paint as well. And this kind of British racing green colour's become our kind of trademark now. So for all the kind of environmental jobs we do, we're using this green colour. And there you can see us basically dumping down the welfare unit. I don't know how many of you have used these welfare units before. They're incredible. It's just like a 20-foot shipping container. One end's got a diesel generator in it and a couple of big water tanks. And then you get inside and you've got pretty much everything you need. You've got a toilet in there. You've got like canteen-style tables. You've got a sink, power sockets, lights. You know, you could be completely in the middle of nowhere and you've got all those, you know, conveniences around. And then we hired a couple of 10-foot containers as well, just to put materials and equipment so we could offload things out of the vans. And obviously, I guess kind of reduce the carbon footprint a bit, because rather than having to bring all the vehicles to work every day, everything could be just offloaded in the containers and all the staff could come in one vehicle. So that was quite helpful. And I think the biggest thing for me about a lot of these projects was, yes, the technology and the science is really interesting, and I had a lot of fun designing and building these video capture systems. and working out how we were going to transfer massive amounts of data over the 4G network, because it's all right if you've just got sensors and things that are recording sound or temperature, you know, you're only talking about small amounts of data. But they wanted 30 frames a second at 1080p. Video is the largest, biggest data you can send. But from this, because we were doing so much with 4G modem, sending stuff across the 4G network, pretty much everywhere we worked, we did 4G. Only a couple of places where we had to use a satellite connection. We were able to sell the client the data as well. So we've become a basically an ISP, an internet service provider, and we're now selling the client the data and the SIM cards. Of course, that's your automatic money because it's the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, really, really interesting. But I think besides all of the technology, for me, I think definitely the exciting bit for me is just building the teams and the camaraderie that goes with it, the camaraderie, the friendships that you make, the relationships that you build with your team members. You know, I would say we've got probably one of the best teams together that I've ever worked with, and everyone is, you know, absolute specialists in their in what they do. So if you look at this picture on the right, so we've got Gavin here. He's from a company called Resco. He does all our 4G comms and satellite. Richard's Excite Electrical. Ben's our chief electrician for Excite Electrical. Then you've got Katie and James. Katie's actually an aluminium welder, and she built all of the camera masts from scratch. Welded all the camera masts, designed and built them herself from a company down in down in Southampton. Then you've got Shane there on the end. Shane's just a small manufacturer that builds marine grade illuminators, whether they're like LED or infrared. We try and build a lot of bespoke equipment because it kind of fits the application and we know it's going to work and it's going to stand the test of time and withstand like the really harsh and kind of rigorous weather conditions. So we've seen a couple of our projects. So Isle of May was the first one. Then we moved to Dunbeef to look at the puffins. From that, we started looking at using technology in other places. One of those is at hydro stations. There's so much here, I had to kind of cut everything down. But we're now doing 18 hydro stations for Southern Scottish Electric, where we're using cameras to count the migratory Atlantic salmon as they swim through the fish passes. Two of them are underwater cameras where the fish swim through the fish ladders. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Pitlochry, seen the fish ladders there. And then the rest of them are what are called born and lifts. So the fish swim in at the bottom of the dam into a vertical chamber. The chamber fills up with water, gates close on a time switch. The chamber fills up with water, and then the fishes are let out at the dam level to swim across. But as they let out at the dam level, we've got a camera there that counts them as they're passing into the river. And then from the salmon, we started looking at what we could do in very deep water. This is the bit that's really getting me excited at the moment. Is the prospect of doing some offshore sensing, and you'll see some of that, some of what we've achieved in a minute. So Southern Scottish Electric, as with a lot of other energy suppliers, obviously have a corporate and social responsibility. And part of their corporate responsibility obviously applies to the environment around their power stations. A lot of these projects are basically putting ticks in boxes to enable them to get their operator's licence. So the last couple of projects were all around Berwick Bank, which is this ginormous offshore wind farm. But in order to get the offshore wind farm, you know, the licence to run it, you have to satisfy all of these environmental conditions. And some of those are all based around conservation. So if it wasn't for what we were doing, they wouldn't be able to tick those boxes and they probably wouldn't get their licence to run. So this stuff is really, really quite important to them. So there's a lot you can do kind of in the periphery, like with the seabirds, etc., monitoring the seabird population, seeing if that changes. But another thing is called offsetting. So basically for all the birds that get chopped up in the turbines of the wind farms, because it does happen, what could they do to kind of bring nature back? And one of the things that they're looking at is using what are called these artificial reefs. So they're these big concrete, they're called Apollo reefs. So remember the Apollo space missions, the Apollo capsule on top of the rocket. The reef looks like an Apollo capsule. It's a big concrete, almost like a bell-shaped unit with holes cut in all around and a cage inside. And they drop these down onto the seabed around the rotors. And basically the idea is to encourage fish and other sea life to come and create habitats. And one of the things that we're being asked to do is look at ways that we can put sensors on these reefs to see what habitats are starting to build in there. But that's offshore in very deep water, trying to work out how we're going to get cameras down there, illumination, or do we not use cameras at all? Do we use some other kind of sensing equipment? Do we use LiDAR? Do we laser scanning underwater? Do we use sonar? There's some very, very clever sonar equipment available. You'll see some of it in a minute. So that's another project we're looking at, is going now from the kind of fresh water out into the salt water and actually underwater. And then just recently we did a project for another branch of SSE for their thermal sector, which was a power station in Ireland. It's always a pleasure to work in Ireland, especially if you like Guinness, because you can't drink Guinness anywhere else once you've been to Ireland, right? And the people there are so friendly. We always try and integrate with the communities and around the places we're working, because it's helpful to us. It's good PR. We're making friends all the time. So this particular power station, they use salt water. It's a thermal power station that uses gas to create electric. So when they haven't got enough electricity, they can turn on the gas, heat up some water, turn it into steam, create some electric. And the problem they had is where they're using seawater coming into the power station, they're using seawater and then it's exiting out the other side. The water is moving so fast that it creates foam on the water, a bit like bubble bath type foam. But this stuff is horrible. It's really scummy, it smells bad, it's got a horrible colour. And of course, bits of it were turning up on the beaches. So local residents were starting to complain, and they said, well, what are you doing about this? And, well, we've got a guy with a clipboard that comes out occasionally and uses a pair of binoculars to see where bits might float. And they're like, well, that isn't enough, you've got to do something more. So they called us up and said, look, off the back of what you're doing with the wildlife cameras, can you build us a camera system that will monitor the foam? I said, well, during the day, it's not a problem. They said, no, we want it 24 hours. I'm like, well, how much foam do you want to monitor? Oh, about 600 metres out into the bay. Right, okay, gonna need some lighting. So along with Shane, who you can see right on the left-hand side of the picture there with the shirt on, the top right-hand corner picture, we built these massive infrared lights, infrared radiators, again, which had to be marine grade because they were on the side of the sea. But that lights up to 600 metres out into the bay like a football pitch. Absolutely amazing, amazing. So, and these projects just keep on coming, and they're definitely a big part of our kind of annual revenue now. But yeah, I just wanted to finish off with one last video which kind of sums it all up and also shows you some of the really exciting kind of cutting edge technologies that we're using for underwater. For me, this is the biggest draw, and I hope this year that we're going to start to get a bit more involved in some of the offshore projects.
In March 2020, SSE Renewables Digital Ventures team partnered with Microsoft, Avanade and Nature Scott to form the Flying Squad. The goal was to develop an innovative approach to environmental monitoring to achieve compliance with the consent conditions for the Beatrice offshore wind farm. In May 2020, a 6-week proof of concept project was completed, with the Flying Squad developing an AI model that could accurately identify and count adult puffins. The model was developed as a desktop exercise using freely available video and images of puffins from the internet. The proof of concept was a great success, and the team from Nature Scott agreed that the next step would be to perform a live trial on the Isle of May, which is home to 80,000 puffins during the breeding season. A new development in the model for the live trial was the introduction of the green centroid tracker that is assigned on recognition and allows a puffin to be tracked for 10 frames if no longer recognised. This supports improved accuracy and reduces the potential for double counting. The model achieved an average accuracy of 85% and was deemed a huge success by Nature Scott. Further retraining of the model, using footage from summer months on the island, would only further increase this accuracy, expected to be around 95%, seen in more recent species AI projects. In December 2021, the Moray Firth Regional Advisory Group approved our application to monitor the Dunbeath puffin colony using our AI technology. Installation for live use in Dunbeath is scheduled for May 2022. In October 2021, the flying squad further developed the AI model for counting salmon at our hydro power stations. The SSE Renewables Hydro Environmental Team monitor the annual salmon migration by counting salmon at 20 hydro stations and reporting this data to the local fishery boards. The Salmon AI proof of concept built upon the existing architecture of the puffins model and developed improvements to the centroid tracker, giving the ability to identify whether a salmon is swimming upstream or downstream. Salmon passing downstream would not be included in the count submitted to the fishery boards. These video clips are just some examples of the model in action. The AI model achieved an average accuracy of 95% over 3 consecutive days, which is an improvement on the existing counting method. The next step for Salmon AI is to perform live trials at 4 sites spanning the whole of the 2022 breeding period. In February 2022, the flying squad completed a 4-week proof of concept study at the Deep in Hull, with the objective of developing more advanced AI capabilities for identifying species in a subsea environment with low visibility conditions. The focus was on the use of sonar and LiDAR technologies, which generate 3D point cloud data and can be combined with audio from hydrophones to positively identify and track species underwater. Cameras were also installed in the tanks to act as a means of validation and to allow us to further develop our image recognition capability on the video. This video is from the North Seas tank and is the first time we've been able to use image recognition to detect multiple different species within the same frame. This particular tank contains species native to the North Sea. In the sonar clip on the left, you can clearly see the 2 sharks in the top of the image, which is mirrored in the video footage on the right. Also notice the ray that comes into shot from right to left in both views. The LiDAR sensor has provided very rich, detailed scans that will prove extremely valuable in monitoring benthic habitats and artificial reef structures. With more time for research and development, SSE Renewables are confident we can utilise this technology for gathering an unprecedented amount of data on the ecosystems local to our offshore wind farms. Our AI journey has taken us from what was first perceived as a crazy idea to monitor puffins, through live trials on a remote island in the North Sea, deploying cameras underwater at dams to monitor salmon, to having the capability to deploy an array of sensors underwater, mapping the environment, and identifying and tracking the species within. We currently do not know what the next stage in our AI journey is. All we know is the voyage has begun and we are excited for our next adventure. Thanks for watching.
That week that we spent at the Deep in, I don't know if anyone's ever been there, it's the aquarium in Hull, was just an amazing week working with the staff there, putting all kinds of different technologies into the water and just seeing what would happen. Yeah, we just came up with some really good results. And what we did is the infrastructure that we put in there to support all those sensors. So we had to put a separate, local area networking, power, all these little cabinets which we screwed to the walls to make little workstations so the various manufacturers could put their kit in. And the hydrophones, we gifted all of that to the Deep when we left. So none of it was ripped out and taken away. It was all left there for further research and other scientists to use. So that's it. That kind of completes my presentation. Any questions? Hopefully one or two.
How do you stop theft and vandalism with those cameras on the rooftop?
In Dunbeef, it's just a million miles from anywhere. There's also a chap called Malcolm who lives in a house which is probably about 15 or 20 metres away from there that kind of looks out for us. All those, the cabinets are all locked and the cameras are anti-vandal cameras, so they're all security bolts and bolted down pretty, yeah.
Problems with the mains power supplies, couldn't SSE have helped you with that?
With the what, sorry?
Yeah, the power supply to the...
Well, do you know what? It's crazy. Talking about power supply, obviously places like Dunbeef, Isle of May is on a generator, a solar panel, which is, of course, all smoothed out through the batteries, right? Dunbeef is coming from a domestic dwelling where you get power that's come off the grid, gone through a substation, is smoothed out quite nicely by the time it gets to the farm. The biggest issues that we had were on the hydro station sites because we were working at a power station where the power that comes out locally from a power station is the worst type of power you could possibly have. There's a lot of EMF, back EMF on it, a lot of spikes, surges, there's valves, pumps, all kinds of things introducing noise onto the system. We had massive problems with it to the point where in the end we got an electrical engineering company which we later on bought because they were we were their biggest supplier and we just decided to buy the company worked on putting our own isolated power supplies in with a huge amount of surge protection and smoothing from using some products called Surgex. Don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. I would highly recommend their kit for anywhere where you've got problems with mains. But yeah, it's really ironic. You know, SSE, this big power company that's providing electric, we had to go and put our own isolated power supplies in to run the equipment. Crazy.
So how much time is spent in actually training the AI?
So the project works like this. So we are responsible for designing and building all the capture equipment and sensors, etc., for capturing the data. We're responsible for storing the data locally so that there's a backup of it. And then we're responsible for transferring it into the cloud via either 4G, landline, or fibre or satellite. Currently, that's where our job stops. Then it goes across to a Microsoft-owned company called Avanade. And Avanade have a team of data technicians that then process the data. We think it's a very inefficient way to do it because the amount that SSE are spending on data costs and the problems that we get sometimes in transferring those big video files, even though that we've reduced them down into hourly chunks. So we're currently running our own R&D to work with something called edge processing. So rather than sending all the data up into the cloud, all the data is processed in the cabinet or actually in the camera. And then the only data we have to send back to SSE are basically the analytics, which are just numbers, which are just a few kilobytes. Much more efficient way of doing it.
Hi, Jace. Yeah, just thinking about like offshore oil platforms where they've got like PAVA systems for like, you know, emergency evacuation, that sort of thing. Have you thought about like the sort of material technology that goes into those transducers for those specific harsh marine applications? Maybe taking a leaf out of their book, so to speak, and applying some of that to your materials concerns you have on your projects with, like, you know, saltwater corrosion, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. We're working with a company based down in Southampton called I think they're called ISCVE. So basically, they build a lot of the buoys that go out, and they did the global saltwater monitoring exercise, putting buoys out everywhere. So they've got like a lot of experience in kind of marine electronics engineering, and we drew on a lot of their experience when we were down at the deep. So yeah, it's a really good idea. You know, why reinvent the wheel? There are companies out there that have these specialisms, and I think one great thing about Excite is that we can take all these different specialists in and build these nice big you know, project teams that do great things. So, yeah, good idea.
Just on that, did you put that team together yourself, Jason, the subcontractor? So did you actually Google these things?
Yeah.
Where the best companies were to work?
Pulled the whole team together myself and had a lot of fun doing it. We had one or two people that came and went that kind of didn't fit in with the team. But I think, yeah, just having that skill in our business for being able to create these teams where we can, as my fellow director Alex always says, kind of punch above our weight a little bit, has really opened some doors for us. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Any more questions for the for Jason, or are we pretty much there? Okay, so big round of applause, please, for Jason and the Puffins. Could be a band. So yeah, thanks very much. So we will see everybody at the in the tent at 7. I imagine there will be some people perhaps potentially in the hotel bar between now and 7. And I look forward to seeing you all a bit later. Thanks again, Jason. Thanks for the sound. See you later. Cheers.